Hi, I'm Alex. I live to create, and I create to live. Welcome to this week's Cinematography Practice, the second video I've ever made in this segment. Wish me luck. This week, my muse Bergie and I created Pregante, which is a play on that old YouTube video of people's misspelled comments on the internet.
Am I pregnant? Am I pregnant? Can u get Pregante?
It's hilarious, let's be honest. The plot of this scene is that I tell Bergie that I'm pregnant. She flips out and goes into a deep introspective mental crisis, effectively reversing the roles of how it usually goes in our society. She then Googles if men can get Pregante in 2025, and I startle her from behind with a big pregnant belly.
What's she doing?
This week's cinematography practice inspiration comes from a lighting transition I saw in the new Severance Season 2 series, Episode 7 to be precise, which was directed and shot by the show's lead cinematographer, Jessica Lee Gagné. Jessica Lee Gagné. If you haven't seen Severance already, I highly recommend it. The show generally looks incredible, but this episode is truly visually stunning. There were many great transitions as well, but the one that inspired me was this one. Gemma Scout, which is the character's name, is at a dinner party with her friends. Her face lit up by seemingly beautiful natural sunlight coming in from the window. Suddenly, she becomes lost in thought as the camera jumps into an ultra close-up of her eyes as the light begins to change into cold blue, then darkness, ultimately a harsh, incandescent, warm light as the camera reveals Gemma in a new location. Not 100% sure how they did this transition. I have some ideas, or if there's a cut in there when it goes dark, maybe, but I knew that I could achieve a similar result, making my own version of it without cutting in between. If they did that. We need to talk about that. We need to communicate to each other what feels right to do in this situation. It's not just my line, it's yours as well. So, how I did it. I wanted Bergie's character to be seemingly lit up by the natural light source coming from the kitchen window, which serves as a backlight for my character. A nice, flat, natural light on her face. That's all I wanted. But I couldn't actually use the kitchen window light because I needed full control over the light when it was time to do the transition. For Bergie's shot, I had to block out the kitchen window and set up my big trusty Aputure 300C in its place, replicating the nice, flat, natural light source on her face. Trained gaffer and cinematographer eyes might take a look at the catchlight in her eyes and say that this is not the window reflection, but most people will be fooled by the reverse shot of me in front of the kitchen window and just accept it. It just feels like fate. Now that I had full control over the lighting, I jumped into the ultra close-up of her eyes, pressed record, and just started playing around. Using the Sidus Link application on my phone connected via Bluetooth directly to the light itself, I gained the ability to create my own trippy colored light effect. I wanted to end on a natural color hue that would match the next scene in the living room, making the transition as seamless and flowy as possible. Almost as if we were in the same scene, but clearly 9 months later.
I think my water just broke.
What I learned and what could I have done better? I really enjoyed this exercise. I only purchased the Aputure 300C light earlier this year, and I didn't do any testing prior to shooting the transition, as I felt confident that I would find the effect I was looking for, that I envisioned through the art of play. And I did. quite literally just by swinging my finger around on the RGB circle in the Sidus Link app in ways I thought looked good on the camera monitor. Love how it turned out. It brings a psychedelic, psychological aspect to a otherwise natural looking scene, which is something I aim to bring into all of my creation, if I'm being honest. Because thoughts and emotions are quite literally a trip, and I love to visualize this in dark and colorful ways. Were I to do it all over again, maybe I would like to play with extending the transition into something even more visually crazy and extreme, to make the psychological journey of hearing this life-altering news even funnier for an audience to relate to. But I was working as a one-man crew for this one and had to work with the limitations of my own two hands. For all the nerds out there, I have some technical aspects I would love to share with you guys. For lighting, I mainly only use the Aputure 300C, bloody beast. She's on me right now. The natural light from the kitchen window and a filler light panel in the final two shots. For the shot inside the fridge, I'm using a wide 20mm lens to capture the interior of the fridge as a frame for our main character. The shot and reverse in the kitchen are both shot with an 85mm lens, narratively to create a little distance between them whilst sharing this big intense news. Also, because the kitchen is a very small space, the 85 along with the wide open f-stop of 1.8 helped create a little depth in the background. A wider lens would have created a flatter image, blending the foreground and the background more together, and I thought the 85 gave a nicer image and better focus on our characters. The wide in the living room was shot with a 35mm lens, same as I'm on right now actually, also wide open at f1.8 for background separation. I wanted it to be wide but also focused on Bergie's character. Same with the final image. And for the quick shots of her computer screen, I used a macro lens because I wanted to focus on small bits of text at a time, as if we were reading in the same tempo as our protagonist, Bergie. I also used the macro lens on the ultra close-up of her eyes in the transition shot because it is the only lens I own that can get this close without losing focus. And I wanted to be very close to Bergie's character when she has to process this big news. I'm late. A final detail I'd like to share is that I used a black mist filter for all the shots in the kitchen. This filter adds a dreamy glow to all the highlights in the image, an effect I wanted to use to romanticize the scene of a couple discovering a new life on the horizon. In the editing process, I also discovered that this effect could also potentially be perceived as a flashback sequence from the mind of Bergie 9 months later before she Googles if men can get Pregante in 2025.
Oh, it's coming! It's a jumper!
And that, my dear follower, whoever you may be, is the end of my stream of consciousness for this time. Should you have any other questions about the production of Pregante that I haven't answered already, put it in the comment section or send me a message. I clearly love to discuss my own work.
It's showtime.
If you haven't seen any of my work already, you can check out my website at www.afcjohansson.com or my Instagram at afcjohansson or here on YouTube at afcjohansson. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, this is my second video in the weekly cinematography practice segment. I'm learning a whole lot already and it's such a fun journey. I'm doing it for myself first and foremost, but if anyone out there is watching and learning along with me, that is the best scenario and outcome I could ever hope for. So thank you so much for watching, and yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, hit me up. All right, peace. Hello? What do you mean? What? What? You're pregnant.